Okay, there we go. So we're now recording, and thank you all so much for being here. I know that these trainings have been intense. There have been several hours of them now. I know that we're on our way to a holiday weekend, and I hope everyone gets a chance to relax. I really appreciate all the effort and time that you've put in so far. This may be, in some ways, the session that you feel like you've been missing this whole time, because most of our sessions, our 2 sessions prior to this one, have been all about technical things, like how do we use Waymaker, which is, you know, a new technology. How do we use Focus to Career, which is, again, a new piece of technology. This isn't going to focus on technology at all. This is going to focus on content and on possible classroom activities. And so I don't really have a big PowerPoint presentation. I just have 2 slides. I have that slide and I have the agenda. And then I'm going to be sharing a lot of different kinds of screens today. So here's our overview. We're going to do a sort of a walkthrough of the template syllabus. This is something that will be designed per school, but it's likely to look like what you're going to see. And you'll probably get something very similar to this when you are given your course. And I'll say more about that in a little bit. We also are going to have overviews of all of the modules that are on Blackboard. I just want to walk you through kind of the trajectory of the course, where it starts, what's in the middle, how it ends. I made lesson plans, and that happened when I taught the course for the first time this past spring in Flex Term 1 in the spring. So I'm going to share my lesson plans. I've revisited them in preparation for this workshop, and I've kind of introduced some new ideas, even the ones that I didn't do based on some things that are going on. We're going to do a Kahoot together, probably about halfway through, to sort of break things up so you're not just sitting and staring at the screen. If you don't know what a Kahoot is, don't worry about it. You're going to learn. There are 2 Kahoots that I have already designed for this class. You will get access to both of them. So you can always design more, you can always do more, but you're going to have some materials built in. And then we'll have time for Q&A. And I see somebody's in the chat. Oh, good, Sarah loves Kahoots. I do as well. And so for those of you who don't know what Kahoot is, it's a really easy to use. The best way to describe it, I think, is like a quiz or a trivia platform where students are using their phones to select answers to questions. And it's kind of silly. It has a gamified feel, and it usually gets a great response from students. They're often accustomed to doing it in high school, but they enjoy doing it. It makes the course interactive. It helps break up a longer lesson. And then just a little disclaimer, this is maybe not as polished as I could wish it would be. I'm going to be very honest. This course was an experiment for me. I, with a lot of other people, have been working on delivering it to you. You all are participating in this great experiment. When you see opportunities to insert your own activities, your own additions to the lesson plans, your own substitutions, please do that. We're not mandating that you do every single thing I'm going to suggest today. We are going to ask that you cover the content of the course, and I'll explain a lot about that today, but your creativity, your fresh ideas are going to help this course turn into something really excellent and very polished. And, we're going to have lots of opportunities in the fall to share ideas with each other. So just keep that in mind. This is still very much a work in progress. And again, I appreciate you and what you're doing by teaching it. So I'm going to share a different screen. We're going to start with the syllabus. So if you just give me one moment. I'm going to share a Word document. You will get this probably as a Google Doc, but possibly as a Word document as well. You can always save a Google Doc as a Word document. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here. So this is very close to the syllabus that I used for my class in the spring of 2020. And so you'll see here, you would put your course and section number, you'd put your name, your email address, your office. If you're going to be teaching it in person and you plan to have office hours in person, it would be useful for the students to know that. Your office hours, if you have those. And then the first thing you're going to do is put in the course description from your school's curriculum document. Your deans will share that with you. So each school's course description is very similar, but there are subtle differences because the course is tailored per school, okay? The course guidelines, the aim of this course is to prepare you to be successful at RCC, et cetera. This is something that I wrote. You're welcome to adapt it if you want to. You can also keep it. It does a couple things. It tells the students what the course is about, learning time management, study skills, developing a personalized education plan, learning strategies for maintaining physical and mental health, for getting involved, for accessing support services, just sort of covering some of the broad topics here. I also tell the students we will be using open educational resources. That's our Lumen textbook, which we'll be going over next after we look through the syllabus. All the texts are available at no cost right now, and we really, really hope that continues thanks to SUNY's partnership with Lumen. And then more information will be shared with you. I have done a breakdown of the grades as follows. Your dean may want you to have a different breakdown, and that's of course fine. Just make sure you're checking in about that. Attendance is really important. And I said to my students on the first day, look, showing up is a big part of succeeding in this class. Coming to class, participation is a separate part of the grade, but being there, showing up is a really big deal. You may want to weight it differently. You can always speak to your dean about that. Class participation, another really big deal, right? So you see that just being there is really important, soaking in as much material as possible, making these relationships with you and with their peers, really important. The textbooks quizzes in Blackboard. So those are the quizzes that come with the course, with the Waymaker course. We'll talk about those quizzes when we go through the modules, but those quizzes all aggregated together, I put at 25%. Your dean might want it to be higher, I don't know, but again, we're trying to make sure the students learn the material without making this a huge hurdle for them. We're really hoping that the vast majority of students pass this course. That's the point of this course isn't to weed anybody out. The point of this course is to introduce people to the institution, to their school, and give them some strategies for success. There is a focus to career reflection, and I'll show you that assignment in a few minutes. And there is a personalized educational plan, and I'll also show you a draft of that assignment. The deans and I are still going through that and working on honing that and revising it. The way that the quizzes work. Oh, I see somebody's in the chat. Let's see. Yeah, so Talia, Talia's question is a good one, and I'll repeat it here. Will the deans determine the pass rate, for example, is it 70%, 80%, et cetera, and the criteria? Yes, we're asking everybody to kind of do what your dean would like to do and to keep things as standard as possible, especially in this first year as we're, rolling this out. In the future, here's what I expect. I expect that the courses are going to look very similar, that the pass rates are going to be, not the pass rates, but the passing level, the passing grade will be the same throughout. And then perhaps in the future, the courses will diverge a little bit more as each dean works with you to, refine the course. But I think especially in the beginning, we want this to be pretty consistent. So, do check with your dean on things like that. And your dean will give you a lot of information. For example, this syllabus template, your dean will give you their version of this, in the future, in the near future. But yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that question. We want to make sure everybody's on the same page for a lot of reasons, one of which is our grant, our Title V grant, which this is a big part of our Title V grant, and we're going to be using some of the funding from the grant to support this work. For example, you might get peer mentors in your class that are supported through the Title V grant. And so we need to do some assessment that allows us to sort of have the level setting across the board. So after I talk about the kinds of assignments and how they break down in terms of a grade, I explain you'll be allowed 2 attempts on each quiz. You need to complete your quiz attempts for the modules assigned to each class section by 11:59 p.m. on the day our class meets. I'm sorry, that's a little typo on my part. Now that's my rule. If I think you could probably change this depending on what your dean says. But what I'm suggesting here is that a student take 1 quiz attempt before class, and then take the second quiz attempt after class. So what I mean by that is Lumen gives them 2 tries, right? If they read through the textbook, they've gone and they've read through the study plan for that section, as you saw in the demo on June the 2nd, they've looked at all those sections of the study plan, then they take 1 quiz attempt before class. Then they come to class happens, what they've learned in the textbook is reinforced, and then they go away and they take the next quiz attempt before the end of that day. That's what I'm suggesting for the students, because I think it will help them do better on that second attempt, having had class in between. in between attempt 1 and attempt 2. So that's just one recommendation that, that I'm making there. Okay, and just like Talia did, feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. I'm also going to pause after talking about the syllabus to see if there are any questions just about the whole document. The next section here is the course learning outcomes. These will be from your school's curriculum document. These are the ones for the Honors 10100 course. So they are here. Yours will be very similar, but they might have some subtle differences. Next, there's a section on attendance. You have my attendance policy here. Your dean may wish to have an attendance policy for the entire school. You would insert that here. Okay. Participation. This is my standard for participation. This course is not about me, it's about you. And so making sure that students know that they're the focus. They are the ones who we're trying to really get into be engaged and be participatory. So I always try to reinforce that in the syllabus. Then I have a section on course resources, including accessibility services, the Reading and Writing Center, and the Connection Center. I see somebody's in the chat. So Celeste, the class meets once a week. So it depends on what kind of class you're teaching. There are some classes that are once a week. There are some classes that are twice a week. And there is one section right now that's online that I've been developing with you, thanks to the New to Online training. So these classes may be offered remotely. They might be offered in person. It depends on the class itself. Your dean will work with you to schedule the class. This syllabus is sort of built for a class that meets once a week. You'll see that in just a second when we look at the schedule of what the students are doing, the course schedule, but you could easily adapt it for a class that meets twice a week. And it's going to meet in Flex Term 1 or Flex Term 2. So you're going to cover this material in 7 meetings. Okay. Oh, thanks, Angelo. I think that statement that this class is not about is about you, not about me. That also helps me, right? It reminds me I may be facilitating things, but I'm not the focus. They are. Okay, so great. Thank you for your questions and comments. We have now a section on academic dishonesty. I think this is important. It also can open up a conversation about the student code of conduct. So when you're going through this policy, this syllabus with your students, you could also pause here to talk about the fact that RCC has a student code of conduct. Have they seen it, right? Have they looked at it at all? Because they're expected to abide by it. And I find that a lot of students don't even know that we have one. In terms of, here's my cell phone, tablet, and laptop policy. Now, this obviously would apply to an in-class session. When we have our remote sessions, you are automatically using a cell phone, a laptop, or a tablet. But this is mine. I understand everybody has their philosophy on the use of electronic devices in the classroom. Mine is actually very loose. Mine says, you are always welcome to use it, but you need to use it for the right reasons. Usually I try to get a little funny in this section when I present the syllabus to the class. Please use your technology for good, not for evil. If you have an emergency, you can let me know. And of course, if you need to take a call in the middle of the class and you've let me know that you have a sick relative at home or someone who might need you, then fine, you can step out. But my policy, I understand, is not maybe the policy that you want. You should feel free to put your policy in here. Okay, this course, is certain parts of it are standardized, and then you're the one teaching it. So certain parts of it are yours. And this is a really good example of put your policy in here. Then I have this note on sexual misconduct that comes from the boilerplate syllabus that Dr. Deere sends us. As these things change, we can of course change them in this template. Now, this may be the most interesting part so far. This is the calendar of assignments, and I have filled this in for a course that meets each Wednesday. So I'm just kind of doing a little experiment here. If your course met once a week each Wednesday, here's what would happen. And these are the exact dates. I looked everything up in the calendar, and there are no holidays on a Wednesday in the first half of the semester. So this course would meet consecutively for 7 weeks. Okay, so the first day that the course would meet is September 2nd. There's no work due for that day because I'm assuming this is a remote or in-person class. There's an introduction to the class. I have a whole lesson plan on how to do that. We'll go through that later, so you can take any ideas from that you'd like. In September 9th, we're kicking off by having them do 2 modules and a Focus 2 reflection. Now, the Focus 2 reflection is an assignment that's already there in the course. I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. Module 1, I want to point out here, Module 1 is an introduction to Waymaker. It does not have a quiz associated with it. So I know this looks like a lot of work, but actually what we're asking students to do in week 2 is to look at module 1, right, which teaches them how to use Waymaker and has no quiz. Do module 2, which has a quiz, and then submit their focus to reflection, which is a 1-page document. Okay, and I'll show you that soon. So it looks like a lot, but actually it's not as much as it may look like because module 1 doesn't have a quiz associated with it. For September 16th, I'm asking them to complete modules 3 and 4, et cetera, et cetera. And then October 14th, you'll see that I've organized things so that on the last day of class, the only thing that's due is the personalized educational plan. That's due on the last day, okay? Let me pause there. I see some questions in the chat or some comments. So Sarah, for those of us who will be teaching the online sections, will you be sharing your online version of assignments, et cetera, once it is developed? So yes, so if you are teaching an asynchronous online section of this course, I can absolutely share my course with you 100%, yep. What's going to happen, and maybe we'll pause there to talk about how the course will be given to you. So Lumen and e-learning will be meeting this week to create 6 master classes in Blackboard, okay? 1 for each school and 1 for the honors program. Those master classes will be populated with the things that you need. So for example, every single module with quizzes, a bunch of resources about RCC, the reflection assignment for Focus 2, a template syllabus for your school. They will be populated with all that material. Then when you're assigned a class, that material, that shell will be given to you, okay? And I really appreciate, you know, in advance, everything that e-learning is gonna do to help us with that. So then when you get that, you can add things to it, right? We're asking that you not take away anything from the Lumen text, but you could add resources, you could add activities, you could add, you know, whatever you wanted to do. And so for the online version, the asynchronous online, when mine is completely finished, I'm happy to share that, you know, in the same way with anybody. But yes, great. And Beth points out that this is a master course philosophy. Yes. And, you know, I also want to point out that we're not trying to diminish your creativity. What we're trying to do is make sure you have the tools you need and that we do have some standardization since this is a, you know, a partially grant funded project and since it's important to be able to assess it for guided pathways as well. But you know, there's a lot of space for creativity. The magic really happens when you are there with your students whom you're meeting for the first time, who are new to RCC, and that's where you as a creative teacher will be so important. Suzanne is asking how many students are in each class. The classes are capped at 25. Now, obviously, if you're teaching in person, the cap may be much lower than that because you'll need to have social distancing in your classroom. If you're remote, you can expect up to, I believe, well, that's a good question. Did we adjust the remote cap at all? I don't think we did. So probably about 25. I'll have to check with the deans on that. I'm not sure whether, I believe online courses themselves that are asynchronous are capped at 20. Is that right, Celeste? They're capped at 20?
Sorry, yes, they are always capped at 20 for online courses.
Okay, thank you. So asynchronous online courses are capped at 20. I don't know what we're doing for the remote courses, the synchronous courses. That's a great question. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer, but I'll check in with the deans on that. And Angelo said, are you asking the students to do the modules before each class? Yes, absolutely. That's something to reinforce. They need to come to class having read the text, and I suggest having tried at least the quiz one time, right? Try it once. You know, see then what happens in class and then try the quiz again after that. Great questions, everybody. You should feel free to keep them coming. The last part of this syllabus, and again, you're going to get your own version of this pushed out to you that you can then adjust with some of your own policies. But the last part is just the important dates. I grabbed this right off the website. Okay, last day for 100% tuition, et cetera, et cetera. And it's worth talking to your students about what some of these things mean on the first day of class, right? So for example, Tuesday, September 8th is the last day for 75% tuition refund for, you know, for their full semester courses, but the last day for 25% tuition refund for their Flex 1 courses. And it just helps to you know, introduce the students to these important dates, because I think sometimes they don't see them, they look past them on my RCC. So I'm going to pause here. Any other questions relating to the syllabus right now? Okay. I'm going to stop sharing this document now. We can always come back to it if you'd like to. And now I'm going to take you into the resources that we have for you. And I've set this up as a Google Drive folder. Within that folder, there are other folders. Actually, you know what? Let's not do this right now. Sorry, everybody. Let me do one other thing. I want to actually take you through the modules first. I think that will be more useful to you, and then we'll talk about the lesson plan. So just give me 1 second. I've got to log back into the system, of course. Is anyone else enjoying doing that about 50 times a day? I know it's for our own safety, but it's a lot. Okay, here we go. All right, so here are my courses, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take you into the course that I've been developing for asynchronous online. What I did, oops, this is the wrong one. That's the course I was a student in. What I've done here for the purpose of this training is I've made the course look similar to something that you'll get. It will look a little bit different, but this will be pretty similar. So let's just start with the announcements page. Of course, you can add announcements, and I would before the beginning of the semester. One of the best things you can do if you're feeling a little rusty on Blackboard is to use those great videos that Brian Gomez produced that teaches you all these different kinds of things about Blackboard. They are really wonderful resources, and they're available through my RCC. So I really recommend that you take a look at those. I just want to show you course information. In the course information tab, I have things that will help the students with the course. So this is going to be my fall syllabus. Right now, it was my spring syllabus. And then I have a whole bunch of links, one to accessibility services, to clubs, to the Connection Center, to the Reading and Writing Center, the Tutoring Center, a little presentation on transferring to four-year schools, a writing resources folder, which includes some helpful links to two of the best online writing labs in the world, the one from Purdue University and the one from Excelsior College. So that course information section, we'll be tweaking it, but it's going to have things like this in it, and it's going to come fully loaded for you, okay? And you can tell students, there's a lot of helpful resources in this section, okay? The meat and potatoes of the course is in the content. Now, in an online asynchronous class, I'm going to be adding a discussion board to this. I think for a remote class, that would be up to you. If you wanted your students to be doing work on a discussion board, if you wanted that to be part of their participation grade, that would probably be a great idea. I don't think we're gonna require that, but again, you can learn more about Blackboard discussion boards and forums through Brian's videos, and that will help. Talia, I agree, using VoiceThread is going to be really, really great. I'm planning to do that for my asynchronous online class. VoiceThread is very, very compatible with Blackboard. Talia and Eileen McCaver-Kane did a wonderful presentation that I believe was recorded. So you can check them out and what they did with VoiceThread. I agree, VoiceThread would be a really excellent addition to this course, whether you're teaching it remotely or asynchronous online. And even if you're doing it web enhanced, to be honest, I mean, that might actually be something really interesting to do. Okay, so now I just want to take you through the modules. We're not going to look at every single link, but in module 1, what you'll see is that there's only links, okay? There isn't any quiz. This is because the module 1 starts with a introduction to Waymaker, and it actually begins with this research consent form. Now, your students should read through this form, and I would suggest telling them this on the first day of class, right? They need to read through the form, and they need to make a decision about whether they are going to participate in the research that Lumen Learning is doing, okay? And if they are below the age of 18, which some of our students are, especially our early admit students, then they can't. They have to say, I disagree. Right? Lumen gathers a lot of data. And if our students don't want to participate in that research, that's totally fine. It doesn't change anything about their experience of the course, okay? It doesn't change anything about the grades that are collected for them. It doesn't change anything about your gradebook or how you assess them. It just means that Lumen doesn't use their data in their bigger research projects. Okay, so let me pause there. I see that there's somebody who's typed something in the chat, and let me see if anybody has other questions. Perfect. Celeste is pointing out that the Collaborate session that Talia and Eileen did on VoiceThread is available on the knowledge base. Okay, thank you. So this is the first part, right, of their experience, where they look at this research consent form and they agree or they disagree. Next, they're going to go through a whole bunch of little short texts that do two things. They help the student understand the strategies necessary to succeed in the course, and they also introduce the student to how Waymaker works, okay? So you see that the students will read each of these links in turn, and they're going to work through this module. So James, you're asking the Lumen research is only contained within the class. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you clarify? Maybe you can unmute if you want.
Yeah, so they're signing off on the research consent form. I'm just wondering what they're consenting to within the parameters of that.
So yeah, so I mean, if we want, we can go back and we can read the whole thing that they're consenting to, but what it boils down to is Lumen is doing research every time anybody across the world uses Waymaker. The students have to either agree or disagree to allow their data to be a part of Lumen's research. Lumen does something called a RISE analysis, which I'm not going to explain all of it here, but they basically use that data to figure out what is working in the text and what isn't working. So for example, Lumen has studied when a whole bunch of students using the data they're collecting are spending a lot of time on a certain unit in the course, but they do poorly on the quizzes. When that happens, they make changes to the text.
Okay. Yeah, I
so
just wanted to make sure it wasn't like
project.
It wasn't tracking like whether or not they had another browser open or something like that while they were working on it.
No.
Okay.
No, it's just about how they're doing in the class for the purpose of Lumen. First of all, being able to show that Waymaker works. So for example, they did a study using this data in Erie Community College, which demonstrated that using Waymaker really promotes student engagement and student success. You may have seen that when you saw David Wiley's video on Lumen. And then they also do it to figure out where they should change their own book.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'm glad we clarified that. I have to say, guys, I mean, I'm not being paid by Lumen at the moment, but they're really pretty cool. And their partnership with SUNY is great. And I just love that they're assessing themselves so deeply all the time. So, but your students are under no pressure, no obligation to say yes to that. Okay. So let's just look at this particular link real quick. This is a link that's going to tell them about their quizzes. Okay, Waymaker courses give you multiple attempts on some assessments to get feedback on failures and successes, so you know you're progressing as a learner. They explain how the quizzes work. They explain how important it is to practice with the self-check. They have a training quiz. Okay, so they have you understanding the automated feedback. Waymaker generates feedback to help you understand where you are with your learning. So this module, even though it doesn't have a quiz, is really important for students to go through. And I'd suggest that you take a look at it as well, because it helps teach them about Waymaker. What I've found is that after going through this particular module, the students didn't have a lot of questions about how Waymaker worked. Okay. There's even a little link here. Can my quiz attempt get lost? What are the technical requirements? So, it's very well thought out to train them how to use the text. It tells them what a study plan is and how to click on the links and everything like that. Okay. Any questions on this introductory module before we move forward? Again, you're going to be able to see all of this on your own. You'll be able to see it. We're, in the interest of time, we're not going to go through super detailed, but you'll have a chance to explore it later. And quite frankly, if you were in the first training session on the second, you still have access to that sandbox, and you can go in and read this stuff right now if you wanted to. All right, I'm going to move forward, but keep putting questions and comments in the chat. So module 2 is the first module in which you have a study plan, okay? And again, the students were taught how to do a study plan in the first module. You may need to reinforce it a little bit. I found that mostly they got it pretty quickly. The study plan starts with why it matters. And so when you click on that tile, this is called a tile, you also need to click on the link underneath it, why it matters. So the student will click on that link. They'll be taken to this introductory text about why success matters. Most of the texts are rather short. You can see this is very short, and they have a little next button at the bottom so the student can progress very easily. Okay. The next section of every single module that has a study plan is show what you know. And this is a pretest. The pretest doesn't count toward your grade, but it gives the student a sense of where they need to focus as they're going through the module. So the idea is this is activating prior knowledge, right? For example, in this one, we probably would get a pretty high score on motivating success, okay? But you know, if we didn't, then we'd know that we need to spend extra time on this module. And that's what the pretest is for. It's to help the student understand what they know and possibly more importantly, what they don't know. And this is in every single one. So once we've done the pretest, we move forward into the actual text itself, okay? Each text is linked to an outcome, basically a goal, and it has learning objectives, okay? So each section here has learning objectives. This teaches students something really important about education. Education is linked to outcomes, right? And outcomes are measured. And this is something that, you know, students start to learn how education works through this module, which is something else I really like about it. Then you'll have a text, okay? This one happens to be about assessing your values. And hopefully you're starting to see why I've asked students to do the Focus 2 reflection for this particular module, because right away, they are talking, Lumen's text is talking about the same kinds of things that Focus 2 talked about. What are your values? What are your career cluster interests, right? And they have all these links that students can use to take more inventories. So let's say they took Focus 2, they reflected on it, but they aren't getting satisfactory results or they want more information. They can take all of these other, you know, questionnaires and surveys from these places that Lumen has identified as good ones, okay? They're not under any obligation to do it, but they could. And so that can be really useful. Okay, so this is how things proceed. Now, what I want to do is, just give me 1 second. I want to go back to the study plan and I want to get us to the quiz, because I think, of course, that's where students tend to be stressed out, right? So before each quiz, there is a putting it together tile, and that sort of sums up everything they've learned. So when you click on that putting it together tile, you then see the link underneath it. The student will click on that. They'll get this little sort of summation of what they've learned. You know, they've got a little case study here to think about. And then next, when they go to next, they're popped back out into that module. Now the quiz, okay, when you're a student here, you're gonna click then on the quiz and that will give you a link to the quiz. Because we're not in student mode right now, we're not gonna see it that way. Let me see real quick when I enter student preview. Yeah, it's going to be different when your students are in here. They're going to see the quiz here in this tile. Okay, so don't worry about that. We're just having a little technical issue there. But they will see the quiz. They'll click on the quiz. They'll click the link, and then they'll take the quiz, and they can take it twice. Okay, so every single module works like this. Every single one. If we go back. Okay. Let's go back into the course. So that's the first module. Actually, the second module, right? That's the first one with the quiz. And I want to go back into that section because you're going to see that also in here, there is an assignment, okay? And this is the Focus 2 career reflection. It says, click the link to this Google Doc and follow the instructions. This assignment is due by the time we meet on the 16th. And somebody has typed in the chat here. Yeah, so Angelo, you're going to be able to, when you get your course, you're going to be able to see the quizzes. If you want to see them right now, you can go and play in the sandbox that you were given access to by Lumen, and you'll be able to see the quizzes and take the quizzes as a learner. Okay. Yeah, great question. Don't forget about that sandbox. It's a really great way to experiment with this course. So for the Focus 2 reflection, okay? Now I haven't yet run this by the deans yet, so this isn't this isn't completely solid yet. But the idea for this assignment is that the students are going to learn two things. First of all, they're going to reflect on Focus 2. Secondly, they're actually going to learn how to use Google Docs if they don't know already. So the instructions are to make a copy of the document in your own Google Drive by navigating to File, Make a Copy. Okay, here we go. And then, you're going to answer these questions. You're going to use complete grammatical sentences, right? We want to get you writing properly as we expect in college. Please make sure you have completed all of the assessments in Focus to career, right? You have to do that first before you can reflect on it. When you have completed this reflection, go to File, Download, and select PDF. Upload the PDF into the Dropbox in Module 2. If you have any trouble with these steps, please let me know. So what this is doing is, and you're going to have to spend a little time in class on this, but starting in week 2, you're teaching your students how to do a few things. First, you're teaching them the value of metacognition and reflection. Okay, maybe they're going to be open to that, maybe not. But more pragmatically, you're teaching them how to use Google Docs, how to do important things in Google Docs, how to save things in different formats, right? And then how to submit an assignment on Blackboard. Now, if I were you, I would be very, very flexible about students who struggle with this. This is something they have to learn. We're not born knowing how to submit assignments on Blackboard, right? So, so if students are wrestling with this, that's productive. That's productive struggles, because that way now for the rest of the semester, they're going to know how to submit assignments on Blackboard. You've taught them in week 2. Okay. Let me see. Someone is in the chat. And yes, Beth is pointing out traditional students know more about Google Docs than we do. I think that's absolutely true. A lot of high schools use Google Docs. Of course, you know, we may run into some students who don't know how, or who come from a different educational background, or who are non-traditional students. But yes, sometimes our students can help us with this. And I'm sure you've had that experience as well when something isn't working in your classroom. So the self-assessment is, you know, what I tried to do, and again, you're going to get this in your course, so don't worry about it. It might change a little bit after I get the dean's feedback, but the idea is think about focus to career. So for example, look back at your personality assessment, what is accurate, what is inaccurate, look back at your values assessment, same question, your work interest assessment, same question, then your skills assessment. Do any of these careers appeal to you? If so, which ones appeal to you? What other careers are appealing to you that weren't listed in there, right? Think about all of your assessment results in both the career planning foundations and the self-assessment sections. Describe something that surprised you, right? Something that you thought, I've never thought about that part of my values, or I've never thought about maybe doing that for a career. And then finally, the last question, at this point in time, what do you care most about, okay? Do you care most about making money, supporting a family, etc.? I see some things going on in the chat. So, Angela, is there any training in the use of Google Docs? Beth, yes, Angela, I'm happy to meet with you at any point if you'd like to learn how to use Google Docs. It's really, I think it will not be terribly difficult to do. There's also plenty of tutorials on YouTube that you're welcome to look up, but happy for you and I to meet at some point if you'd like a basic overview of Google Docs. Really powerful tool for our students to be able to have as a part of just, you know, the fact that they are coming to RCC. So this particular assignment, you know, again, it might change a little bit. If you haven't had the chance to do Focus 2 as a student, please do it. I found it really interesting. I didn't always find my results to be accurate, which is part of why I put some of these questions in here. So what I did to prepare for writing this assignment was I did all the assessments as a student, and then I looked back over them kind of with my teacher hat on, and I thought about, okay, well, what do I think is most useful for our students to do? And really, I think it's all about, you know, what felt right about this and what didn't feel right about this, and to point out that no Focus 2 assessment is pigeonholing you, right? The purpose of the Focus 2 assessment is to you know, help them think about their career or their plans or their values in ways they might not have done before. It's not to pigeonhole them into something saying you can only do this, right? That's not the point of Focus 2. Okay. So, and Celeste, I see your private message. Yes, thumbs up. That sounds great. We can talk more about that later. Celeste is just going to make life easier for everybody with a Blackboard use PDF that we can upload in every single course that comes out there. Okay, so we're going to stop sharing this now, and I'm going to run through the modules more quickly. So back in content, that's the only module that has an assignment that is not the quiz, okay? So there's a quiz in module 2 and there's an assignment. That's the only module where that happens. The rest of them, if we click on module 3, there's a study plan for goal setting and time management. There's a quiz for goal setting and time management, okay? After this, we have learning styles and strategies. We see that time-wise, I've paired those together. And again, study plan, learning styles and strategies. Now, here is where I added a link, optional reading. is there evidence for learning styles? Okay, this whole, I don't know if you all have heard of VARK, right? There are some people who love that. There are some psychologists who are challenging that. Okay, that's the idea that you could be a visual or an oral or, sort of a reading focused or a kinesthetic learner. There's been some pushback on that. This is optional. I've signaled it as optional. It's something I wanted to add for my students. Okay, now you are under no pressure to add that link. You are under no pressure to use that link if you have it there. You can add stuff to these modules. You can add optional things. You can add required things. That's totally up to you. The only thing I'd ask is, let's just not overburden our students with a lot of extra required things. But anything that you want to add in these modules, it's totally fine. It's your course. So feel free to add. Okay. Here in the next module, we have study skills. Great module on study skills. Then there's a follow-up quiz on study skills. And in fact, before we go further, and I should have stopped myself after this last one, I have a Kahoot that takes into account modules 2, 3, and 4. We're going to do that in a few minutes when we get to the lesson plan section, but just so you know, I usually pause at this particular point after module 4 and do a Kahoot that does some review, okay, for the students. And we'll do it together in just a couple minutes. Module 6 is a module about thinking and analysis. It's trying to teach students a little bit more about how do I do that deep dive that's required by so much more advanced work, right? How do I really dig in and thinking critically and also analyzing what I'm reading? There's a little bit in here about sources, really important material. Module 7, now you'll see here, module 7 for my course, for the honors course, is a different module than it will be for yours. Module 7, there's an extra module in the honors course that doesn't have a study plan attached to it. It's teaching our honors students a little bit about the fundamentals of epistemology, how do we know things, and argumentation, how do we stake out claims. That's for the honors students. I've hidden it, right now because I don't want you all to get confused. So your module 7 will be career exploration, okay? This is where we'd like you to come back to focus 2, okay? There's a study plan, there's a quiz, but in class, you could do a lot of work on resumes. You could, and you'll see that I've created a whole folder here with resume tools. There's a presentation from a program that RCC ran in conjunction with some young professionals in New York City over this past academic year called The Scoop. One of those young professionals, her name is Priyanka, she gave a great resume workshop and she gave a sample resume template. You could use these in class. You could offer them as optional resources to your students. It's really going to be up to you. There's also another resume template here. There's a whole list of strong action verbs for resumes. You can refer students to career services to help them build their resumes. But there's just some extra tools here in career exploration. There's also a whole bunch of self-assessment tools. There's multiple links here via monster.com. There's a career clusters interest survey that students can print out. Again, this is all optional. It's just enriching this particular career exploration section. Okay, and when you get your course, these things will come preloaded into it. If you don't want to use them, you can hide them. If you want to make them optional, you can just signal that they're optional. It's really up to you. Okay, and then we'll go to the final modules here. Module on social interaction and diversity. When we get to the lesson plan, this is where I'm still working very hard on trying to figure out for myself, what do I want to do with this unit? Because this unit has always been really important. This unit is even more important now, is what I would argue, in our current cultural climate, where we're thinking about Black, Indigenous people of color and how important it is to hear their voices and really listen and make sure that education is equitable and talk about the problems that are going on in society. So what you'll see, and I see there's some stuff in the chat, I'll get there in just a second, but what you'll see here is that in addition to the study plan and the quiz, I've added a link to the YouTube video that Strategic Marketing produced based on the Black Lives Matter RCC panel that featured students and alumni from the college. And that was offered last Wednesday. The video is up there on YouTube. I've linked to it, and in my lesson plan, I've actually got a suggested activity working with that. So let me look at the chat. Celeste, when you asked LinkedIn.com, I'm not sure. You could easily link to that if you wanted.
No, just LinkedIn is a corporate, I shouldn't say corporate, I'm sorry, business, post-college answer to Facebook that is a networking site that a lot of people do use. And while some are using it like a Facebook, there's a lot of good networking work that goes on. People will post their resumes. If they are seeking a job, they're going to put up cover letters and such like that. And recruiters and companies will also use LinkedIn to search for candidates. So it's something to think on.
Absolutely. And you know, at any point, you're welcome to have, you know, again, I would be very cautious of overburdening our students here, but you could have an extra credit assignment that says create a LinkedIn profile, or you could have, you know, a required assignment that you, if you want them to do that, and take a screenshot of it and send that to you, right? There's a lot of things you could do to enhance any of these modules, and you're welcome to do it. And so I appreciate that suggestion. It's a great one. The next module is on health management. And so, you know, some of us in this particular, I've looked at the attendees today, some of us know a lot about this. Some of us don't know much at all about this, right? So when you and in your school's context, if you know a lot about this and you want to add a whole bunch of resources and talk about it from your school's perspective, for example, the School of Nursing, Health and Wellness will probably have some really interesting things to say about this for their students that, you know, might not be something that will happen to the same extent as the School of Arts and Humanities. We're all going to have students going through the lesson plan, the study plan, and doing the quiz, but, you know, some schools might want to add more here, right? What is that? Let's think about this from the perspective of nursing or exercise science or et cetera, right? So always feel free to add and to tailor what you're doing in class to your particular school. Okay. So, and Natasha, I'm pretty sure anybody can set up, yes, Kay, thank you. I think everybody can set up a LinkedIn at this point, but I'm going to defer to you all. I haven't checked my LinkedIn in too long. I must not want a new job, which is probably a good thing. Okay, so all jokes aside, I'm happy where I am. All right, financial management is the last module, and some of us are going to be very confident in financial management. The School of Business and Professional Studies may have a lot of extra resources to add here, and maybe some of the rest of us can take advantage of that. Financial management is something that I was a little bit nervous about teaching, but we're actually going to have, first of all, the study plan's very good, and eventually we're going to have a coordinator of financial literacy, and even without that coordinator, we're going to have some extra resources to share with you here. Suzanne, do you want to say anything about this particular section, since it's something that I know you've been working on more broadly for the college?
Right now, no, I don't have much to say. It was my ideal goal to actually have a LibGuide up for you before the start of the semester, which I'm still working on. Please feel free to contact me for ideas. This was my favorite section to teach when I taught college success. So I have some ideas, and I actually have a great video that I'm going to shoot off to Katie regarding credit cards, which always stuns the students. But please reach out to me, and I can get you some things. I don't think we'll have our coordinator in by
September.
Start of the course, unfortunately. This is one key element of the Title V grant. So this is one where you're going to be hearing from me and saying, okay, I need you to do these assessments. I need you to do these assessments. I kind of need this one to be kind of a non-negotiable, only because it's outlined so much in our grant that this is a key component of both this course and the student success experience. But I'm going to try and make it as painless as possible. Any questions, reach out, and thank you very much. I'm not looking for a new job either, Katie, just so you know. You made me laugh. It's been a wonderful community so far.
Great, I'm glad to hear it. And so for those of you who haven't maybe met Suzanne yet, she's our director of Title V, and she came in right as the pandemic, you know, pushed us all off campus. So you may not have seen her around, but she is working so hard in the background. And so there may be one or two extra things we're going to ask you to do in this section just because of the Title V grant. But just, you know, we will make it as painless as possible, and we of course need that money quite desperately. So Steve, thanks so much for linking the cold join. I see. So it looks like you do not need a an invitation to sign up for LinkedIn. So that's something you could easily do with your students. Again, I want you to feel empowered to get creative, and we're going to do a lot of resource sharing. But you know, the students have a very rich textbook that they're going to work through. I think the real question is, what do you do in class to enhance what they've learned through the textbook? So maybe it's showing that video on credit card debt in class and then having the students discuss it, right? And so right now, what we're going to do is we're going to turn to the folder that I've made that's full of resources, including lesson plans. And again, these are not required lesson plans. This is just what I did and what you could do, and take it as a foundation, okay? And we're gonna stop partway through to do a Kahoot together in just a few minutes. So if you've never done a Kahoot, make sure you have a phone handy. If you've got a smartphone, you'll need it when we get to that activity. You can also do a Kahoot on a tablet or a computer. So if we think about lesson plans, here's how I organized mine. I put it in a Google Doc. I just, you know, had an activity, and then I had the time allotted, and this was how I planned things out for the course. My first few lesson plans are very detailed. After that, it became a little bit less detailed because I was often reacting to what the students needed, and I felt like I knew them well enough that I could be a little looser in my planning, okay? So you'll notice that that happens partway through. In the first week, when we meet for the first time, and again, this was an in-person class, you could do this in a remote class as well. I had students pair up and introduce themselves. That might be a little tricky to do on Collaborate or Zoom, but you might be able to do it with breakout rooms, or you can just have students introduce themselves instead of pairing up. So I had them, for an icebreaker, introduce each other, name, intended major, and superpower, something they're good at, right? And I said, you know, this doesn't need to be something that saves the world. It can be you're really good at playing, you know, Tetris, or it can be, I mean, nobody who plays Tetris anymore, right? But it could be you're really good at cooking, or it could be you're really good at babysitting your little sister or whatever, right? Taking care of your parents. So something that they're good at. Then each student introduced their partner to the class. It was really nice. We took some time for that. I think it's really important to let the students do a lot of the leading of this class, right? Let them talk a lot, let them ask a lot of questions. We then talked about the syllabus. I demonstrated how to log into my RCC and navigate to Blackboard. I talked a little bit about the Lumen text and discussed Waymaker. I told them they needed to go through Module 1 to make sure that they understood how Waymaker works. I also demonstrated how students can find their academic advisor. In that case, it was doing Web Advisor, but you could do that in Banner as well. If you're not sure how to do that, that's something that we can teach you. But since most people here are probably advisors of some kind, you probably have access to that in Banner. But again, there will be Banner tutorials that I've already made one actually that the students watch to register. There will be more that can be offered there. So we can put that kind of resources in your course. These are just suggestions, by the way. You don't have to do these activities, okay? I just want to show you how I ran through it. Then I did the support services selfie assignment, okay? And I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes. The students actually went out and they discovered support services at RCC in small groups. They took pictures, and then they came back and they shared what they learned, right, about these support services. So the goal of this assignment, and let me share that with you now. I hit stop sharing when I didn't mean to. The goal of this assignment is to get students familiar with how the support services work at RCC. So let me go back to my resources folder. What you'll see is that in this folder, which you're going to get access to, this Google Drive folder, you've got everything organized by week, right? Week 1 is the first day of class, then each module separated out within the weeks, right? So week 2 is modules 1 and 2, etc. In week 1, you'll see that I have this support services selfie assignment for you. So if we click on this, if you want to do this, if you're on campus, you could have students in pairs or groups of 3 visit your assigned offices on campus, and you're assigning them things like go find accessibility services, and then the tutoring center and the reading and writing center, right? And they're all over in the tech building. But you could just as easily do this in Zoom or Collaborate. You could say, all right, you've got, you know, accessibility services, the tutoring center and the writing center. You need to go find those pages online, and then you need to figure out what they do. What are these services for, right? And then when you've taken a selfie at each location or a screenshot at each location, return to the classroom, work together to organize your notes into a brief presentation to your peers about the services each department provides, okay? And then I said, I want you to send a professionally worded email with your selfies attached. okay, and this was by the following Monday. And I gave them as an example, a professionally worded email to a professor looks like, I know this is a little small, dear Professor so-and-so, comma, attached, please find the required images for the support services selfie assignment, sincerely, your name. So we're doing two things here. We're getting them to, well, we're doing a bunch of things actually, to be honest. We're getting them to find support services, whether it's online or whether it's in person and they're running around campus. We're getting them to talk to each other. They're in small groups, right? They're starting to form friendships, acquaintances. We're teaching them how to write a professionally worded email and how to attach a file to that email. So as much as possible, I tried to get the assignments to work on multiple levels that way, right? Teaching multiple skills in the same assignment. And yes, Celeste is pointing out that this is so much better than getting a "Hey Professor" email. In fact, when we were planning for this course, one of the students we talked to was a student of Talia's when she taught Humanities 100, which is one of the precursors of this course. And Deb Vineker put so much work into that. And this student said that she learned how to write a professional email from the class. And I think it's such an important skill, right? Our students need to know that when they write an email that says, "Hey Professor," that doesn't make them sound very professional, right? And being professional is important. So this assignment, works on a few different levels. You are under no obligation to do it. It's just how I spent part of the first day of class. Okay, that was my lesson plan for day one. If we go back to the lesson plans and we look at week 2, again, this is for a course that meets once a week. So that's what I'm assuming right now. Your plan would change if you meet more than once a week. The next time we had the students, they did modules 1 and 2 before they got to class. They had an icebreaker. We did, what is your spirit animal? I think students always love talking about that. We got a lot of laughs out of that. Then I did something that I do for every subsequent class, and I'm really hoping that you'll follow me in this. I ask, what is on your mind? What questions do you have about RCC or this class? And you'd be surprised. Students are going to ask things like, I don't know how to do X on Banner, or I don't know where this office is, or I don't understand what my lab, is for my science class, or I don't know where to find this room, right? Or, I don't know what office hours are, right? I mean, who knows what questions you'll get, but I think it's really important to give them space in every single class to ask these questions, because the textbook has most of the content that we need. The classroom space should help them be successful. So if they're confused about something, they need the space to say that they're confused, and then we need to do our best to help them. Now, you might not know the answer to their questions. That's okay. You then pass that up to your program director, or you reach out to financial aid, or you talk about, you talk to your dean. Whatever it is, you can say to them, I don't know, but I'll get you an answer as soon as humanly possible. And then that becomes part of your lesson planning, basically, is getting them that answer. What I found is that this really helps students feel more comfortable and relaxed about being at the institution. That's just anecdotal. I don't have any data on that, but that's what I found. So, please keep your questions coming if you have them. Then, part of the lesson in module 2 is actually introducing students to different kinds of classes. And so I reviewed the types of classes that exist: lab, lecture, seminar, workshop, online, in-person, web enhanced, hybrid, honors, etc. Right? We talked about all the different classes that exist. What classes are you in? Do you have any questions about those classes? Are you confused in any way? We talked about credit values. Why are some classes 1 credit versus 3 credits versus 4 credits? What does that mean? The importance of starting strong for achieving scholarships and internships, right? Do your best right away, because you can get invited to Phi Theta Kappa. You can, have a strong GPA, which might open you up to other scholarships or to transferring to a really great school, if that's what is part of your plan. We discussed syllabi and how important a syllabus is as a contract, both in this class and in other classes, right? You could do that on the first day too. I reinforced how to find the student code of conduct, which is online. And then we actually talked through students' individual degrees. Now, in spring 2020, we had degree sheets that we could print out. They could be easily found on MyRCC. Now things are changing. Students are going to have access to something called Degree Works. It's supposed to be hopefully launching later this week. I'm not sure if anyone has updates on that, but eventually it will be very easy to help a student understand how to go through Degree Works. But in this particular case, we just looked at students' individual degrees. And I had a very small group. So what I did was I looked up each student's degree and I printed out the degree sheet for them and I gave it to them. And I said, here's your degree sheet. Let's talk about what degrees mean. Let's talk about what general education means. Let's talk about the fact that financial aid doesn't pay for courses outside of your degree, you know. And so this is a place where you could do that in a different way now that we have different tools. We'll offer more information about that, tutorials, resources, etc. So I know this is a little fuzzy right now. Again, you're under no obligation to do this. It's just something that I wanted to do for the students right away. We always have a break. Then the Focus 2 career reflection assignment is due on this day, right? So then I think it would be great to for me anyway, I would like to hear from each student about how they answered some of those questions. So I would just spend some time sharing out and having a discussion for the rest of the class, however long I had, right? It might be 45 minutes, or maybe if this question part took half an hour, we might not have as long, but that's okay. They've still turned in that assignment, okay? Again, this is not anything set in stone. These are my lesson plans that I'm offering as something for you to use or not, as you wish. In week 3, we did modules 3 and 4. Modules 3 and 4 are a lot focused on study skills and things like that. So the icebreaker was, where is your favorite place to study? And then of course we did what's on your mind, what questions do you have? And now here we're going to do this Kahoot, okay? And then we launched into the Kahoot, and we're gonna do this together, okay? So what I want you all to do is, if you've got a smartphone, grab that. You're going to navigate to kahoot.it, and I'm going to show you that in a second, okay? And we're going to, okay. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I hope you'll all join me. I'm going to give you the same instructions I give to my students, okay? So you are going to point your browser, either your phone or your computer or a tablet or whatever you have, to www.kahoot.it, or if you have the Kahoot app, you can use that too. There is an app. You're going to input the game pin when you are prompted to do so, okay? That pin, I usually, when I've got my classes, I usually put that pin in the chat. So I'll do the same thing here. Where's the chat? Here we go. So here's the pin. Okay, and what I tell my students, and you may have a very different feeling about it, but what I tell my students is, you can use any name you want as long as it is not vulgar, right? Can't be a bad word of any kind. It's June 30th, right? See, there you go. So I have students, oh good, somebody did a star. You can use an emoji. I've had students be like, you know, be me, right? One student was really cheeky once and entered as Dr. Lynch. I thought that was funny. Lip tea, there we go. So I think we know who that is, but you know, people being silly. And what I found is, when you let them be silly, which their high schools never let them do, by the way, you have to use your real name. When you let them be silly, they like it more, okay? So we've got a shamrock, we've got a playwriter, I think I know who that is too. We've got some people using their initials. Oh, Talia, you've had students put in naughty words in other language. Yes, that happens. Okay. So we'll just wait another minute. Oh yeah, so there's Sarah, who put not only her name, but the cute little emoji. We've got somebody who graduated, a wool spinner, I think I know who that is. And so this is really, I find it really fun, and when you let them be a little bit creative about the names, I think it just, you know, helps everybody a little bit, okay? So I'm going to move forward now. We're gonna start the game. You know, let me see, there's one more person in the chat. It says you're in, now what? So don't worry, I'm gonna start the game in just a second, okay? So here we go. Now, what you're going to do is you are going to select the best answer for each of these questions. And what Kahoot does is it rewards you on 2 different facets. The first is, did you get the correct answer? And the second is, did you get it fast? So if you quickly answer correctly, you will be at the top of the leaderboard, okay? The faster you answer, the better, except if you get it wrong, then nothing good happens, right? So speed and correctness is being validated. And there's one more chat here. You're too old for speed, Angela. That's okay. Don't fret. There's no reward or grade attached to this. And I say that to the students too. Sometimes in the past, they have had grades attached to this. Oh, Oi is with us now. All right, here we go. We're going to start. Okay. So question number 1, if you received accommodations in high school, or if you have a condition that limits your mobility, register at where? Is it the tutoring center, accessibility services, the connection center, or counseling services? You're going to choose the best answer. Remember, they've already done an activity in week 1 on support services. Okay. The music is great. I'm not sure you guys can hear the music, but if you can, okay, perfect. So the answer is accessibility services. So then you can review that with them, or if everybody got it right, you can be like, yes, great, and you can say something like, if these were the results, if I were teaching you all in the first year seminar, I'd say, you know, counseling is also a great place to go whenever you have any questions about you know, struggles that you're facing personally. You could go to them if you had a condition that is limiting your ability to move around, or if you received accommodations in high school. But the place to go to get, you know, extended time on tests, or to get a note taker or something like that, the place to go for that is accessibility services. That's the kind of thing that I would do. Angelo, I'm sorry to hear that. So when you see the 4 choices, you're going to tap on one. You can always try reloading it if you need to, but it does tend to work well for most people.
Yeah,
okay? So we're going to go to the next.
Yeah, I hit the color-coded box and it just nothing happened on the screen, so I don't know why that was.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Most people were able to do it, no problem. Maybe try again for the next question.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
let's see if that works.
All
So
right.
taking courses not required by your degree could compromise your ability to receive what? Is it a Chancellor's Award, entry into Phi Theta Kappa, scholarships, or financial aid? Good. And so it's financial aid, right? If you are not taking courses that, or if you are taking courses that aren't required by your degree, you might not be able to get financial aid because financial aid pays for courses within your degree. This is something that, you know, the book has, the text has gone over. This is something that I've suggested in my lesson plan reviewing, right? And so that is something that we want to reinforce. You have to be careful about what courses you choose. The good news is this new tool, DegreeWorks, is going to really flag the times when students aren't having courses in their degree. So it's going to be hopefully easier than it has ever been to help students find that information, okay? So whoever's graduated is on top right now, right? So we've got a leaderboard after every single question, and it's really fun to see how the leaderboard changes. Hopefully, so Playwriter is the highest climber. So Angela, it looks like you got it working. That's great. Let's move on. So this is a true or false question. All full-time professors have 5 office hours per week, and you are encouraged to visit them during these times. True or false? You see, you can have different kinds of questions. Kahoot is free, by the way. You can make a free account. There are some limitations to the free account. Yes, good. So all full-time professors have 5 office hours per week. Now, this might be a chance for you to talk a little bit about the difference between full-time and part-time. And, you know, I always do so very respectfully. I say, you know, we have wonderful part-time professors who will make themselves available to you outside of class, but they're not required to do so. And it's important to understand that many of our part-time professors work at other institutions, and sometimes they just can't. They have to run off to teach at another place. So, you know, please be sensitive to that fact. That's usually what I say when I'm teaching, and I go through this. Okay, but office hours, a lot of students think that office hours are when teachers work, and it's like, no, this is when you come bother me. That's the point of office hours. Me is on a roll. Me is on fire. So I love that little icon. Well done, me. Okay. Number 4, which technique will help you remember key course concepts? This is from the book. Visual aids, mnemonics, connecting old information to new information, or all of the above. This comes right out of their textbook, okay? I know we haven't seen that, but it's going to come right out of the text. Great, so it's all of the above, and if students are confused about any of these things, we can review what they are, right? What is a mnemonic? You looked at it in your book. It's, you know, a handy way of remembering something. Maybe give some examples like Roy G. Biv for the colors of the rainbow, or, you know, some of the old rhymes about, or the old mnemonics about how to remember the order of the planets, which always includes Pluto, and which makes me very sad now. Anyway, Pluto's not a planet anymore. Hasn't been for years. Number 5, the human brain is not capable of multitasking, performing more than one activity at a time, right? So I define multitasking there. Is that true or false? The human brain is not capable of multitasking, performing more than one activity at a time. This is also in the book, and the answer may surprise you. Okay, so the answer is true. The human brain is not capable of multitasking. The human brain can switch between activities very quickly, but it can't do two things at once. And that kind of surprised me, because we talk about multitasking as something that we are good at, but actually what happens when we multitask, according to the science cited in the book, is that our brain is just switching back and forth really fast, and it honestly is not the best thing to do. So the book will explain that, and it did surprise me as well. Okay, me is still on top, but Suzanne is coming on strong. I usually do a little bit of narration like that, like announcer style. Number 6, for every hour you spend in class, you should spend at least how many hours studying? This also is from the book. 1/2, 1, 2, or 0. This may surprise you as well. Okay, the book recommends 2. And I think this is really important. We're going to talk in a few minutes about a calendar activity. And in that calendar activity, I remind students, you need to not only book the times that you're in class, you need to book at least 2 hours for every hour you spend in class to do your work. And I think this is a really important thing that students often don't know. They think they just go to class and they're done. Nope, you got to spend some time outside of class. Me is still in the lead, but PJ has been climbing the ranks. Number 7. When writing an essay for college, what is the last step of the process? This is me with my writing teacher hat on. Is it editing? Is it brainstorming? Is it revision? Or is it drafting? Okay, so it is editing. Now, here I always make a distinction between revision and editing. So, you brainstorm to get started, you then draft, then you revise your draft, and then you polish it up, you proofread, you edit at the very end, because there's no point in cleaning up the grammar on sentences that you might not need, right? And figuring out which sentences you need or which order your paragraphs are in, that's revision. Editing is the very last step, where you're making sure that it's grammatical and proper and everything like that. So we go through that very briefly. And they will go through it in their writing classes too. Scholarly sources are blank. Written by experts with an advanced degree, peer-reviewed by other experts, often found in library databases and or published by university presses, and all of the above. Okay, so yeah, this one's pretty easy to understand, right? It's all of the above. You've got, they're written by experts, they're peer-reviewed by other experts, and we talk about that. Usually I have to go through what peer review means, right? It's similar to what you've done in the past, probably in your education, but this time it's a more formal process. Scholarly sources are often found in our library databases. We're gonna, at some point, talk to them about our library databases. And then of course, the answer is all of the above. We're almost done. Suzanne's in the lead now. James is coming up close behind. To reduce test anxiety, and this is out of the book, get enough sleep, maintain proper nutrition, set a manageable study schedule, or all of the above. Yeah, so good. So this one, again, some of these, could I make them a little more difficult? Sure, but like sometimes I just want the students to get the point, okay? If you don't like my Kahoot, by the way, you can make your own. I kind of thought about revising this, but it's really true. You need to do all of these things to reduce test anxiety. The book says all of these things. These are all really good things to do. And so, why not reinforce it? But you can always make your own Kahoot if you think mine is too easy or too weirdly didactic. Okay, last one. Cramming, studying a lot at the last minute, is the best way to prepare for an exam. True or false? Okay, excellent. False. It is, of course, not the best way to prepare for an exam. I think we all know that in our heart of hearts. Even our students know that in their hearts of hearts, but it's worth pointing out, and the book also points it out. So when we're done with a Kahoot, we go to next, and then there's a podium. Okay, and in third place, me. So well done. I don't know who me is. We're going to find that out in a second. Then James, I'm guessing that's James Lee, is in second. And in first place, the spotlight, Suzanne, and then there's confetti, okay? So, usually what I do, LibT and SS are the runners up. I usually take a screenshot of this, okay? I'm going to stop sharing this now. Yeah, so we're going to leave. I take a screenshot of this. Sometimes I can post those on Blackboard or share those with the students. So let me look. I see there's something going on in the chat. Okay. Yeah. So Angelo, your point is a good one. Okay. You know, sometimes when, and we're going to have students fill out calendars in which they talk about the different pressures on them. Okay. And the different tasks and activities and things they need to do. And I'll get to that activity in just a second. But you're right. You're right that, you know, asking a student to do 2 hours of homework for each hour of class and get 8 hours of sleep is a tricky concept. Now, not every class is going to require 2 hours of work for each hour of class, but the point there is to help the students understand, listen, you can't just go to class and assume that everything you need is going to be done in class. You have to be able to book study time and homework time and writing time outside of that class. So thank you for doing the Zoom with me. Those of you who have done a Zoom before, you know, you are old hat at this, you are professionals. Those of you who have never done a Kahoot before, I hope that it was fun for you and that maybe you'll integrate it into your classes. There is one other Kahoot that I've already designed that I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. Now, after this Kahoot, I did a break, a 5-minute break. And then we came back and there's this activity called the calendar activity and a discussion of time management styles. And I remind the students that their course text has resources that will help. So what I've done is I've created, and I'm going to go into the resources folder and show you. Again, you have no, we're in week 3, I'm sorry. You have no obligation to use this, but I actually showed them, I printed out this weekly calendar and I said, I want you to write down your commuting time, your class time, your eating time, your club time, your leisure time, your, you know, when you're going to go to bed and when you're going to wake up, right? And, you know, your study time, right? And so some students had colored pencils and they did this really beautifully. Others, you know, just did it really quickly with pen. But actually going through this exercise, which is something that the text recommends, we did that in class. And then we also did this little time management and learning style self-check. This is, remember, this is, you're now in week 3. So it's, you know, about a fifth of the way through the semester. Is the student actively participating in their classes? Often, sometimes never, right? And we have all these different questions. Are you attending office hours? Are you dedicating time to studying? Are you attending study groups with your peers? Are you visiting the tutoring center? Are you taking notes? Are you getting 8 hours of sleep per night? Of course, no one's doing that, including me. Are you creating visual aids? Are you reading a text, etc.? This isn't something to turn in. This is an activity that I did in class. And then once the students had done the calendar and once they had done this little self-check, we talked about it, right? And it helps them figure out what are they doing that's good, right? So for example, if every day, every week, you are attending your instructor's office hours, that's a good thing. If you have never done it, you're going to want to start, right? So this is the kind of conversations that we can have through this self-check. Let me see, there's somebody in the chat. Yeah, so Celeste, I found Celeste is pointing out that the calendar has some limitations because it could be a little bit, it could have half-hour blocks, you know, in it. You can make your own calendar. You can just download one from the internet. That's what I ended up doing, was just downloading a calendar from the internet, but you could easily do that. Giving them space and time to do that activity in class, I think it really helps. And then we, of course, shared out, we reflected on it in class. So we're going to move forward into our next modules. In week 4, modules 5 and 6, for the icebreaker question, I did high-low. High-low is something that some of you do as well. High-low simply means what's something good that happened to you since last we saw each other and what's something not so good that happened to you. I tell the students you do not have to share deep, dark secrets or anything really personal. It can be, I got my paycheck and I got a flat tire, or you know, I got my paycheck and I was late for class. Usually it's all about getting the paychecks, but you know, something good that happened, something not so good that happened. And it helps students create that community. I'm really big on the value of icebreakers every time we meet. And I do that in my other classes too, incidentally. Then we have our What's on Our Mind section. We have questions and discussion about that. Then this particular set of modules is about thinking and analysis. And so we do a critical and creative thinking exercise. I'm not going to go through that right now because we're running a little low on time. So just know that it's in the week 4 folder in the resources. Okay, so if you look here, it's right here in week 4. There is that activity that I specified. Okay, you will get access to this in case you want to use it. You do not have to use it at all. Then we had, in my class, we did an argumentation activity, and this is the honors class. So we were doing a little bit of extra work from what is offered in Lumen, and then we talked about the library. In a non-honors class, I would suggest making the library the focus of the second half of this thing, right? Of this particular lesson. How do you access the library? How do you find things in the library? You could do a really cool scavenger hunt kind of assignment where you're asking students, find a scholarly source published in a scholarly journal, find a newspaper article, find a book, right? Find a movie. You can do all of that little scavenger hunt kind of thing for our library resources, whether you're remote or in person, and it could be really useful because our students often forget that we have a library and that a lot of it is online at this particular point. If you've been in our library recently, you know that it's a wonderful study space. It does have some great resources, but the shelves are pretty thin in certain respects. That is not in any way a critique of our librarians. That is just a commentary on how things have changed, how learning has changed. And I'm really grateful for the fact that we have so many online resources. In week 5, so now we're looking at modules about this includes the social justice module and also the career exploration module, okay? My icebreaker question is, what did you want to be when you were little, right? When you were a little kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? For myself, it was a cashier because I thought pressing the buttons was really cool. This always incites laughter. There's a lot of fun answers to this question and it ties in with the career section, okay? I'm going to be very honest. When I did this in the spring, we mostly kept the focus on careers in this particular section of the course, but there is a module on social interaction and diversity. And I think that now in our current climate, it's going to be really important that we not skip over that module. So I've put a possible activity here. First, acknowledging the Black Lives Matter protests and the racial injustice that we are confronting both nationally and internationally. Then showing a short clip from RCC's Black Lives Matter discussion. This is only a couple minutes long and the link is here. In this clip, in case you weren't at the discussion, Dr. Baston asked the students, who are all Black like he is, how many of you have had the talk with your parents? And the talk is, you know, what to do if you're pulled over or stopped by the police. Where do you keep your identification? What do you say to the police? It's this really, this particular part of that panel really like grabbed me by the throat and shook me, right? Because the idea that that our friends and colleagues and our fellow citizens who have skin that isn't white have to have that conversation is, I think, very, it's very important to acknowledge. So my suggestion here is, you know, if you show that clip and have a discussion, that might be one way. There are probably a lot of other lesson plans out there that I just haven't had the time to look at yet. So we're going to make sure that you have lots of ideas. We're going to share a lot of resources on this. This isn't the end of this conversation, but yes, I think I agree, Angela, it was gut wrenching. And so I think it's really important to not skip over that social interaction and diversity to get to the career stuff. I think we need to make sure that we have an activity of some kind, whether it's this one, if you like this, or whether it's something else that you come up with, or we'll make sure that you have some resources around this. But yeah, and thank you to everybody who came to that session. And I'm just, the students were amazing. And Dr. Baston was a fantastic moderator. So anyway, we've got a break after that. And then here's where I would suggest reviewing the construction of resumes and cover letters, or talking about doing another activity around careers, maybe doing more career assessments, things like that. There are tools on Blackboard in that particular section already, and of course there will be more. This is also a great place for you to tailor things to your school, right? In the School of Business and Professional Studies, you're going to be talking about certain kinds of careers that are different from the School of Arts and Humanities, or different from STEM, or different from Nursing, Health, and Wellness, or different from Education and Social Sciences. This is a great place to do that. And then this is the last of the modules, okay? So in week 6, you're covering the last of the modules. You've got an icebreaker activity. At this point, I threw it to the students. I said, what kind of icebreaker question do you want to do? And they came up with one, and we answered that one. And that was fun. It was fun to let them take charge. We then did our What's on Your Mind section with questions and discussion. We reviewed the personalized education plan assignment because that's going to be due in week 7. So we reviewed that assignment and made sure everybody understood what was required of them. We are working on that right now with the deans. We will get that to you. It will be loaded into your course. I then did another Kahoot. It's up there for you as well. You can use it. It's a health and financial management Kahoot. Okay, and then there was a health and finance management activity that we did in class. We may ask you to do something in class that is coming from Title V, just because we need those kinds of assessment pieces. But there is right now a health and finance management activity in the week 6 folder in the resources that I'm going to be sharing with you. So it's already there. If you want to use it, you can, and we can look at it if you're curious during our Q&A, which we'll get to in just a second. Now, in the last day of class, another icebreaker. We're sharing our personalized education plans. After a break, we talk about advisement for next semester, right? What kinds of courses might you need to take? You can also do this by school. So remember that the gateway courses that your students have to take is going to be the same. All of your students in your Introduction to the School of Arts and Humanities course have to take the same 5 gateways in their first year. Okay, so you can, even if you're not a trained advisor, you can still help students make plans for their next semester, and always refer them back to their actual advisor. Okay, and then we really will, I hope, have a course evaluation even for the sections that are online, and you can do that in the final minutes of your course. So I am going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop talking. I so appreciate your attention. What questions do you have at this particular point? Or comments or suggestions? Anything? I know it's been a lot of information. So let me just recap what you're going to get. In the coming weeks, you are going to get a Blackboard course shell, which is going to be populated by the entire textbook, including the quizzes, the personalized, the Focus 2 career reflection assignment, the link to the personalized education plan, a bunch of resources in the course information section. You're going to get all of that. You're going to get access to the Google Drive folder, which has everything I just talked about, all of those suggested activities, lesson plans that I did. You're under no obligation to use any of them. You can use them, you can adapt them. And then later in the summer, there's going to be additional opportunities for you to talk with smaller groups about what you're struggling with, get a refresher on Waymaker. In the fall, as we're all teaching this, we're going to have small group conversations about it. There'll be so many other times to get together and share ideas and share concerns and challenges. Francis, great question. Francis has asked, when will we be meeting with our separate groups? That's going to be up to your dean. So your dean, I'm sure, will want to get you all together by group of teachers, and you'll look for a signal from them on that. So Beth, when you say August 1st, August 15th, I'm not sure what you mean there. Can you clarify for me? Sorry, Beth, I'm just not sure what you mean by those dates. When will we have a specific course, or? Yeah, we're working with Lumen this week, really hoping that it's going to be before August 1st, to be honest with you, really hoping it'll be within the next few weeks. This training is the last required training. That's on purpose, starting tomorrow. If you're on, one of the contracts that says that you don't have to work during July and August, then, you don't have to do anything. So everything that comes after this is going to be optional. Yep. And I'm happy to talk to you anytime. I'm only self-taught in this. I've taught it. I worked with a great team during Guided Pathways to research it. I talked with great teachers and great designers of other courses like Deb Vinacore and like Talia and other teachers who taught our Humanities 100. We have so many great resources here. You're not going to mess these students up, okay? Just remember, you're not going to mess them up. You're giving them a great textbook with great quizzes. You're giving them an opportunity to express themselves and to ask questions. You're not going to mess them up. This course is meant to just help students get on a strong foundation. I know there might be a little nerves about certain kinds of topics. I felt that too, but it's okay to not have all the answers and to refer students to other departments, career services, financial aid, their advisor, right? You don't have to know everything. You just have to be willing to help them and to set them on their path. It is pass-fail, Teresa. It's actually a pass-fail course that is spelled out in the syllabus. That was something that all of the deans agreed on in terms of pass-fail. Yep. So we've reached 11:30. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording now. This recording will be made available